Reporter Kylie Kumalo has Julius Malema on standby, and then we'll continue our conversation. Kaya, over to you.
Well, that's right. Thank you so much indeed, Clement. Of course, a pandemonium once again playing out here in this very house that ought to be very august. But joining us now is a member from Southern Africa, here in South Africa, the leader of EFF. So, Mr. Malema, quite a very embarrassing scene playing out here, given the very importance of this institution.
Indeed, it is very embarrassing. And it's something that we don't expect from the leadership. But we are left with no option when people don't want to comply with the instructions of an organ that establishes us. We are an organ of the AU. The AU has written a letter to Southern Caucus, and it has written a letter to the clerk of the House. People say those are mere opinions and are not binding on them, which is incorrect. There was suspension here of a clerk. The letter came from the same legal counsel of the AU in a form of an opinion, but that letter was binding. But because today is not favorable to some of the people, they start questioning the power of the legal counsel of the AU, which said to the clerk, we are the only authority when it comes to legal advice on all organs of the AU.
And just now, there's a stalemate, and we're still waiting for these elections. From your side, do you think the environment is conducive for these elections?
It's not. The environment is not conducive. But you've got people who conduct elections in violent situations where they come from. That's why they don't see anything wrong. For us, it's not conducive because every time we meet, there's a problem. Now, we must not allow this to go on. We have seen a woman being kicked. We have seen a woman being strangled and her arm being broken. We are being pushed around here by women, and we are helpless because we can't do anything. You just behave in a manner that will not put you in a trouble. Very violent activities. So what do we do? Let's adjourn and then allow the AU to convene us. No interim leadership. The clerk must run the administrative affairs of the Pan-African Parliament. The AU, when it's ready, it must call us back and facilitate the elections.
And obviously, I mean, Mr. Malema, we've seen the AU Commission right in Addis Ababa, Mr. Mohammed, also reacting to this scene, saying it's quite disturbing. I mean, the continent is facing an array of issues. Post-recovery from COVID-19, the situation in Mali itself, we know that there has been an issue with an MP from Mali, but, you know, it's a litany of issues facing the continent. Those are the core issues that you'd expect the members to focus on.
Well, that's why we are talking about rotation. Because every time we come here, there is election. We fight. But once you adopt a rotational principle, you know the matter of election is settled forever. We know where the presidency is going next. It's no longer going to be the big issue which shadows the rest of other issues because some people are obsessed with positions of power. This matter, since the establishment of the PAP, North and South have never occupied the position of president. They don't see anything wrong with it. We have allowed them. We have been the most understanding people, the most peaceful people. And that modesty has been taken for a ride, has been confused with stupidity. And now we want to show them that they are not going to allow, they're not going to continue with sidelining of the North and the South. They say they want to go to Addis Ababa next meeting. They want to go to a DRC next meeting. Anywhere they go, will raise this matter. If it's not complied with, we don't care whether it's happening in a French-speaking country or anything. We'll raise it because it's a principal matter. And if they want to kill us in their countries, let them do it. They keep on saying, we want to take parliament. One of them even said we can take it to France. Can you imagine a colonized mind saying a Pan-African parliament must go to France? That's unacceptable. You see the type of characters we're dealing with here. But we're going to fight. We're a family. We're going to fight to find one another. And we will ultimately find one another. We come from different backgrounds. We come from different experiences. It is through this robustness that will appreciate one another, and begin to do the right thing. We don't need anyone to ratify anything. Rotation is a good principle which will unite the continent and make us concentrate on real issues that are affecting our continent.
And just the issue of unity, Mr. Malem, we know that, the colonial divides linguistically, Francophone, Anglophone, and so forth. How do we try to overcome those long-standing problems, Because even within AU itself, at times, decisions are not reached because, this long-standing problem of these divisions.
Hence, we must have this robustness, because through this robustness, we are going to find one another. As we engage there on the stage, many of them say to me, we are of the same generation. We must find one another. Let's not be like those who came before us. And I agree with them that as a new generation, we must not continue with the divide, which is based on language. We must have differences on ideologies and ideas, but not who speaks the colonial language better than the other. We must fight as Africans robustly. Parliament is for that. And avoid violence and avoid touching of anyone. But still engage in a manner that will persuade each other to be one thing.
And sir, you have been very vociferous about the issue of corruption in this institution. You have been one of those voices that have been very loud. So also, once again, the issue around the checks and balances, how the funds are used, it's always one of those issues, that is still outstanding in terms of how should it be addressed.
You can see that the whole thing of fighting is actually, you can suspect that there's some resources. Someone is trying to hide something somewhere that if they come in, they will end up realizing the shenanigans we're doing. We want to take this PAP, correct the corruption that has been happening in this PAP, position it as a body that will have legislative powers, and get as many countries as possible to ratify the protocol so that we can have legislative powers and hold the executives accountable. That's where our interest is. But their interest is on money. I mean, one of the candidates has parked a private jet at the OR Tambo for 2 weeks. They went to Mercedes-Benz, asked for V-classes, and asked for Maybachs to drive around certain delegates. Why would somebody invest so much money if there's nothing to be benefited in the immediate? You can see that there's some corrupt shenanigans that are going on. And we need to go in there and correct all those wrong things.
And do you think, sir, we need this institution? We know that obviously the long-term vision, it's Pan-African Parliament with more powers as opposed to a toothless body. But do we need PAP?
We do. We need one parliament. We need one military. We need one treasury with one currency. We need one president of the whole of Africa. Because that's how we're designed from the beginning. We are now at each other's throat because of the divides which are caused by artificial borders which were imposed on us by colonizers. We have always been one. And let's go back there. Let's be like all of them. Let's be like Europe. Let's be like United States of America. Let's have Africa, because this division into small, insignificant countries makes it impossible for us to bargain at the same level with them. It is only the unity of the African continent that will make us to stand on the same level with China, with Russia, with Europe, with America. What will Swaziland tell America? What will Botswana tell America? They are so insignificant. Numbers matter in politics, including in economics. We need these numbers to come together and say we are one. So we need one parliament. We need one army. We need one reserve bank. We need to make sure that there is a president of the African continent, and all these states will affiliate to that united Africa.
And just before we let you go, sir, we hear some are saying the session should be adjourned to at least October, so that then you can reconvene with a very clear, cut plan in terms of these elections. What do you make of that particular proposition?
We agree entirely, because every time we meet here, we embarrass ourselves. So let our father AU come and intervene. We can't find one another. Let AU come. No one becomes an interim leader. The clerk continues to run the administration of the parliament. We wait for AU to come and preside over us. They must send someone with authority who's going to say to us, this is how we're going to proceed. We will be the first ones to defend the weight of the AU. Even if the AU says we don't want rotation, it's not in line with our policy, we will agree.
All right, so thank you so much indeed for your time. That's, of course, Mr. Julius Malema from EFF. But, of course, today he's wearing a hat as an MP from Southern Africa. Quite a number of issues that he touched on, calling on the AU to step in. Of course, there's a letter, Clement, that has been doing rounds. We do believe that letter is saying the principle of rotation should prevail. It's time for Southern Africa to have its own candidate so that they are able to govern in these institutions of the continent. And you know that, in all likelihood, this was bound to happen, given the level of contestation, where the animosities at times tend to run high, given the very divides that we still see manifesting between those from the formerly French colonies and those traditionally from the English-speaking countries. So it's still a long way to go, but we'll wait and see whether will the session start today.
Yeah, and Kylie, I imagine there's still no indication as to what time the Pan-African Parliament will resume. I heard you mention there that some people want it to be adjourned until September. That would mean what? The leadership vacuum for a couple of months?
So it's still going to be a long road, Clement, especially because now they say the Secretariat of the Pan-African Parliament should make sure that in the interim, with the lack of the leadership, they are not, there's no vacuum, as it were. So hence, there's a proposition that is going around for the House to adjourn until at least October for the AU then to step in and have a solution, because currently there is a stalemate, like Mr. Malema said, that whenever they convene, it's always a pandemonium. It's more like a continental embarrassment, as it were.
All right, Kylie Khumalo, thank you so much for your time on the lead this afternoon. Julius Malema there, as a member of the Pan-African Parliament, again stressing the importance of this body, says we need one army, one treasury, one president for Africa. We need one currency, and the numbers matter, he argues. If you've got such a continental or regional body that is so effective, you're able to sit down with some of the world economic powers and be able to have a voice. That's Julius Malema speaking to my colleague there, Kylie Khumalo.